Welcome back, Patriots. We have a bombshell story here regarding whistleblowers coming out and saying that the Biden-Harris administration, in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security, was not utilizing DNA testing at the southern border. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, there's a couple reasons. First, the Department of Homeland Security refused to follow a law mandating it take DNA samples for illegal immigrants taken into custody, which would identify violent criminals and child traffickers, employees told the U.S. Senate. Now, we know there's around 500,000 children that have gone missing. They don't know where they are. And whistleblowers have come out and said, well, they're being sold off into sex trafficking and forced labor. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas comes out and says, well, this is true, but it's not all of them, which is a remarkable statement being stated. Not only that, we also have a CIA terrorist tracker, codenamed Superbad, that has come out multiple times and said, not only do we know that there's terrorists, sleeper cells in the country right now, over 1,000 of them, but some of them we're actually tracking. Furthermore, the terrorists all around the world, specifically Iran, Syria, and Afghanistan, are creating these false passports that are being utilized to get through the southern border. And we're going to show you all the clips and break down everything for you today, folks. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. As I mentioned here, speaking to senators in July, 3 former officials presented evidence that Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, had blocked their efforts to comply with a 2005 law, then retaliated against them when they sounded the alarm about the law breaking, which is common practice here with the Biden-Harris administration of not enforcing the laws, which is one of the main functions of the executive branch, is to execute the laws that are on the books. This poses a massive national security to the country. Quote, given the enormous potential of DNA collection to facilitate solving crimes, we took our jobs seriously. Yes, because there's terrorists coming across through the border. There's violent gang members, sex traffickers, smugglers, drugs, fentanyl, all that stuff. Law enforcement experts from CBP's Weapons of Mass Destruction, WMD, were tasked with implementing a mandatory program to DNA test illegals. But higher ups in DHS were so opposed to the law that they continuously thwarted it, eventually disbanding the entire Weapons of Mass Destruction division. The whistleblowers say disbanding the division may have opened the United States to a weapons of mass destruction attack in addition to criminals crossing the border. How does this play into current time? Is there's a lot of drones flying over New Jersey, and one of the theories behind it and rumors is that there's some biologics that have gone missing. There's a nuclear warhead that was from Ukraine or Russia that had gone missing as well and made its way to New Jersey. Who knows if that's true? But you also have the Judiciary Committee here coming out with a report back in August where the terror at our door, how the Biden-Harris administration's open border policies undermine national security and endanger Americans. I mean, there's a lot of information in here, not just the fact that there's more than 250 illegal aliens on the terror watch list who were encountered at the border. This doesn't include, which we'll see in one moment, from a CIA terrorist tracker codenamed Superbad coming out and saying, yeah, we know where all of them are coming from. They're coming from at least 36 different countries. We know there's sleeper cells here present time. And get this, they are plotting an attack on U.S. embassies as well as our allies' embassies. It could happen all at the same time. But she's also said is that they are currently training and have already displaced these terrorists in the United States that are going to make an attack on the U.S. Capitol. Folks, this is the CIA coming out and saying this stuff. Very similar to what we saw with the FBI director for Christopher Wray, saying what we're seeing in terms of alarm bells and red flags going off is nothing this country has ever seen in its lifetime. That's FBI Director for Christopher Wray, as well as Congress saying that stuff. So here we have Superbad coming out and talking about the southern border, but also the passports that are being forged by these terrorists and how you can't catch them at the southern border, which is why we need to lock it up. Regarding those suicide bombers, now they've developed vests that have gone through metal detectors that are untrackable, untraceable, and that they're going to try to implement this stuff, not just in other countries around the world, but also the United States, which comes from the CIA once again. just because somebody's on a terror watch list does not mean we can get them at the border. Listen to this, because this is going to blow your mind. And we got another clip again talking about the embassies and a potential attack coming up here in the United States, folks. This is some serious city. This is about a year old, this specific clip here. And we're going to play a lot of it, but I also have another clip that is current, like a month ago, that talks about these U.S. embassy attacks. You just got to hang tight here, guys, because this is a lot of important information, because all this has come through our southern border. And you're hearing talks about Iran, and you're going to hear talks about Syria right now. And Syria currently has basically a disabled government. They have no government, really. And you're seeing ISIS, as well as a previous, I don't know if the Biden administration changed it, but current terror group that is running the whole brigade there in Syria. Massive issues going on, where now you have two countries, one of which is the Iranian government that's a leading sponsor of terrorism, which Joe Biden's giving billions of dollars to. And you're going to hear here in a little bit is that Joe Biden's also funding $87 million every week to Al-Qaeda. And some of these individuals' administration departments, he's also funding $3 million. And you might be saying, well, Brad, hold on, she's talking about terrorists here. What do you mean the United States, specifically the Biden-Harris administration, is funding their administration efforts? I'm not kidding. This is the CIA coming out with this. By the way, it's all open source documents too. That's the amazing thing, is you can actually find these documents yourself. It's all open source. It's mind blowing what is going on. And Donald Trump's coming into office here in about less than a month. Massive issues on his hands, because now we had a national security threat bigly going on present time. Plus, and giving Al-Qaeda $87 million a week minimum. This has been going on for, she's talking about the evacuation that took place in Afghanistan, the botch evacuation that Joe Biden did. So Joe Biden brought in a lot of terrorists. He's also funding terrorists. He's also allowing terrorists to come through the southern border. He hasn't locked up the southern border, because even if we apprehend somebody at the southern border, they're not going to be shown on the terrorist watch list because they're having fake passports that are being produced by other terrorists. See the massive issue we have on our hands here? And the way that they're coming through the southern border is that you weren't able to hear yet, that she discusses later on, is the whole idea that they're utilizing TikTok to show the routes of which they can get through the southern border or into the interior of our allies' countries, or even our country here, which might be one of the efforts that's being conducted by China that we don't know about. Definitely Iran and Syria that we do know about. But maybe one of the reasons why Congress, through a national security effort, has said, hey, we're going to ban TikTok starting January 19th. Maybe that's one of the reasons, not just the spying effort that's being conducted by China, but also the terrorist utilization of TikTok. So she goes on as to why they haven't hit, and her answer, short answer, is, well, they were in a training process. They will. That was a year ago. Now we get in the present time here, where they're going to be talking about not just a passport issue once again here, but going a step further and talking about hits on our U.S. embassy as well as the Capitol. This is crazy, you guys.
So some of these terrorist organizations are looking for very strategic stuff like U.S. Capitol, basically U.S. governmental infrastructure and elites. And then on the other hand, you have what I'm used to seeing when we were over there. They just look for the easiest, the easiest, biggest target, because they want to kill the most amount of people in the quickest amount of time and get the most press out of it. And so that would lead me to believe universities, churches, stadiums,
farmers markets, those type of things.
How many people, how many fighters do you think we can expect in each attack?
Well, the 1,000 is all of them. So we're calling it's an Al-Qaeda planned attack, but within those 1,000 terrorists, some of them are ISIS, because they want ISIS to be blamed. We have a theory on it. I hate to throw out theories. We think the actual,
It's the first time I think you've ever thrown out a theory.
I know. I just think people are like, she's crazy. I think the more of the fighter types are going to be ISIS, because then if they're caught, then they talk, I'm ISIS. I think more of the suicide bombers are going to be Al-Qaeda.
Will these attacks, do you think these attacks will happen simultaneously throughout the United States? Or will they be one day here, next day here, another one over here next week?
So they want them coordinated. I don't know if coordinated means all at the same time, or if coordinated means we do it Monday, we do it Tuesday, we do it Wednesday, we do it Thursday, we do it Friday, just do 5 straight days. But they want it coordinated. What's coordinated mean? And the other argument we have, does coordinated also mean U.S. and Europe at the same time? And is Europe all coordinated at the same time? So when they say coordinated, we don't know exactly what that means. So they could also be U.S. and Europe at the same time, which is complicated.
Do you think Europe will see mass casualties? Or earlier you kind of mentioned that you think that the primary target in Europe is still U.S. embassies.
No, that's for the wave. So remember, there's a wave of embassy attacks, but then there's this multi-coordinated attack. It's a completely separate wave of attacks. So they're going to get the same October 7th attack in Europe as we're getting in the U.S. as planned right now anyway. And they also, so 1,000 terrorists were supposedly trained for the US and deployed, and 1,000 were supposedly trained for the Europe attack and deployed. The embassy plots are completely different with completely different trained terrorists.
Man, why haven't they hit yet?
Because the training takes the time. So for
they're
Israel,
here. They're here though.
Supposedly, yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear that? The training takes time, and because we're an hour into the podcast, they've already explained that they're here. They came up through the southern border. They have false passports, which we just got done covering, which we also just got done covering the fact that they're not even doing DNA testing at the southern border, even though that article was referring to the child trafficking that's taking place and the forced labor where they've lost 500,000 children. So even the DNA testing potentially could unravel and show that somebody is, on the terror watch list. And the reason why I say that is because during the Afghanistan debacle, we left behind biometrics, but we also have those biometrics here in the United States where we could catch a terrorist, but they've not even enforcing that anymore and got rid of the entire weapons of mass destruction department, basically, the ones that check for those types of things and are allowing these people into the interior of the country. They're giving them visas. We just got done hearing it.
They got here.
Let me ask, how long have they been here?
I'm not sure, but if we just do math quick, okay? Israel, they trained 500 terrorists, right? They got a longer timeline, but they were planning to train 500 in 3 months, right? 2 months. So they're going to train 500 in 2 months for Israel. So for Israel, they did it really quick, but it would have been half-assed. They luckily ended up with 1.5 years. But then remember, I told you they had to train 10,000 for Syria. And I think that gets completely ignored, okay? So they have this huge number, and we just saw what the effect of it, right? So the 10,000 for Syria, and some went to Iraq, became the priority. And then we think the homeland attackers were in there. And then that's training's done too, if that makes sense. So they are training for multiple phases at the same time. So it takes time to get through all the training.
Man, this stuff scares the shit out of me. What do you think? Okay, you had mentioned earlier, we just got done talking about the significance of October 7th. How many other dates are there that it could potentially, if they're looking for that kind of, symbology or whatever you want to call it, how many dates are we looking at? Is it too many are there too many significant dates throughout the 20 years that we were over there that we can't, we can't.
So they go on to talk about the dates and the significance of those dates. There's nothing really specific that she actually gives, just because there's stuff that goes back to people's birthdays, like Osama bin Laden. She talks about Osama bin Laden's son. But one of the main emphasis I want to show here is, again, you have whistleblowers coming out. This is old, by the way. This comes back to July 25th article here, where if we're not even doing DNA testing, we know that Alejandro Mayorkas here has lied to Congress, specifically Jim Jordan, about securing the border, saying that the border is secure, when in actuality it's not. Everybody knows it's not. You've allowed millions upon millions of people to come up through the southern border. And this isn't a matter of you being Democrat or Republican. This is a matter of you being American, and the fact that people want to hurt you. People want to harm you and your family, and mass casualties. And because you have an administration here that hasn't done their job, because the Democrats believe in open borders, that's one of their core foundations now. Now we all have to deal with a national security threat where if something happens under Donald Trump's watch, well, guess who's to blame now? Donald Trump's to blame. It's his fault. And nobody's going to look back at these two idiots right here that have allowed this debacle to take place. And not to mention, where's all the uproar from the Democrat Party, the fact that there's 500,000 children missing? Aren't they all about the children? Aren't they all about believe all people, believe all women aspect? Where's everybody at on this? This is wild stuff. You've never seen something like this in your lifetime. The amount of trafficking that has taken place and mass migration has never happened on this scale in human existence. And that's a real fact, by the way. This is nuts. And something is being plotted right now as you're seeing 10,000 terrorists, 1,000 terrorists here, 1,000 terrorists in Europe. We know where some of them are, by the way. Here's a mind-blowing thing that she also talked about, is that some of these terrorists that came over from Benghazi, we actually know the license plate, where they live, where they drive, and what type of car they're driving. We know where these people are, some of them. Some of them we also know are being basically not apprehended here, but harbored here. They're being allowed to stay here. And we know that they should be convicted for murder in their home country, and we're not deporting them. This is wild stuff. This is why Donald Trump wants to do mass deportations, because we have a national security threat on our hands, and something's being plotted. And we're hearing rumors from the CIA that does targeting for these terrorists, that has open source documents saying that they're planning to use the U.S. Capitol or some sort of U.S. embassy. I'm curious, Patriots, what you think about all this. I want to make sure I get this information out to you and your friends. It's a long video, but I think it's very important to highlight the aspect of what potentially could take place here in 2025. Not to be an alarmist or an extremist, but We got to get this stuff under control. Curious what you think about it. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that like and subscribe button. We also have a membership, 99 cents a month, folks. And we have a book, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. Make sure you check out everything in the description below. And I'll see you next time here on The Bald Brad Show. Take care, Patriots.